Have you ever had one of those moments where you thought you really knew something, like inside out,
Uh,
only to find out the real story was way more complex and honestly just fascinating?
happens all the time, especially in science.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that kind of revelation. We're talking about a molecule you've definitely heard of, lactate.
Lactate. Good.
For so long, it was just seen as, metabolic waste, that stuff that makes your muscles burn after a hard workout, something bad.
Right, the villain of exercise fatigue.
Exactly. But get ready for a pretty radical transformation in how we see it now, especially in neuroscience. Our understanding has done a complete 180. Lactate's gone from being seen as like metabolic trash to being a truly key player, a real powerhouse in the brain.
That's absolutely right. And our mission today in this deep dive is basically to reevaluate this molecule completely. We're going to uncover some, frankly, surprising facts and get into its dual role. It's not just essential energy fuel, it's also a powerful signaling molecule. It essentially talks to your brain cells. Think of this as your shortcut to really getting up to speed on lactate's, well, profound impact on how your brain works and your overall health.
And honestly, the connections we're about to explore are pretty unexpected. We're talking lactate influencing everything from memory to focus, maybe even conditions like ADHD. It's going to be a really eye-opening exploration, I think.
Definitely.
So, okay, let's unpack this first. For decades, like we said, the main idea was lactate metabolic waste product.
Yep, simple as that, supposedly.
Something your body made when muscles went hard, leading to fatigue, that burn. You just wanted to clear it out. But that story, well, it turns out it was way too simple.
And that's exactly where this huge shift in understanding kicks in. Current research. It paints a totally different picture, especially for the brain. It really highlights lactate's critical and, frankly, incredibly varied functions. Yeah. Not just simple fuel. It's recognized now as a complex signaling molecule. Some researchers even jokingly call it a lactormone. Like a hormone.
As a hormone.
Yeah. And this reevaluation is massive because it means we actually have to rethink a lot of older brain data that probably just missed lactate's active, crucial role.
Which means our whole picture of how the brain works, well, it needs a serious reconsideration, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It throws open doors for potentially huge new discoveries about brain health, maybe boosting cognitive function, maybe finding totally new ways to treat disorders.
It's a genuine paradigm shift, and it's pretty exciting to see how far we've come so quickly.
Okay, so let's dive into that first big role then. Lactate as crucial energy for your neurons. The brain cells doing all the heavy lifting, the thinking. What's really cool here is it's not just one cell type doing the work, right? It's like teamwork for energy supply. How does that actually work?
It's a really beautifully coordinated system. This teamwork idea is best captured by something called the astrocyte neuron lactate shuttle hypothesis, the ANLS.
Okay.
So put simply, you've got astrocytes. They're a type of brain cell. Think of them as the brain's little energy factories. When your neurons are really active, like when you're focusing hard or learning something new, these astrocytes grab glucose, the brain's usual sugar fuel,
Right.
and then through a process called glycolysis, they quickly convert that glucose into lactate, especially when those neurons are firing like crazy.
So the astrocytes are making the lactate.
Yeah.
Then what?
Then this lactate they've made gets efficiently shipped directly to the neurons that need it. They have these specific delivery trucks, transporters that move the lactate. Once it gets inside the neuron, these active brain cells can rapidly burn this lactate to generate ATP, their energy currency.
Oh.
So the analogy holds up. Astrocytes make this special high-octane race fuel, that's the lactate, from the regular gas glucose. And they deliver it right to the neurons, the race cars, that need that quick, powerful energy boost.
So is it actually true then that neurons sometimes prefer lactate over glucose, especially for the tough jobs? How does that work? Is it like choosing premium fuel?
That's a great question. And yes, one of the key kind of surprising findings. Neurons can use glucose, absolutely, for lighter activities, just general background thinking. But when the brain is really pushed for demanding mental tasks, high attention stuff, lactate becomes essential, almost mandatory. The brain ramps up its use.
Wow. So it's not just an alternative, sometimes required.
Exactly. It points to this really sophisticated, demand-driven energy system in your brain. Think of glucose as the steady power for everyday thinking, keeping the lights on. But lactate, that's the turbo boost.
Okay, I like that. Turbo boost.
Yeah. It's what your brain switches to when you need to crack a complex problem, focus intensely, or learn something really new and difficult. And importantly, it's also a critical fuel during metabolic stress, like recovering from low oxygen. And it doesn't stop there. Lactate also fuels other important brain bits, like the cells making myelin, that insulation around nerve fibers, and it helps keep the blood-brain barrier strong. It supports the whole system.
Okay, that fuel part is huge. But now let's shift gears. You mentioned a second role, just as important, lactate as a signaling molecule, a master messenger. This is where it gets really interesting, you said. It's not just about energy anymore.
Not at all. It's this brilliant
Yeah.
communication network. Lactate acts as a messenger by basically docking onto specific sensors or receivers on brain cells. There's one called HCAR1, for example.
Mm.
When lactate binds there, it kicks off a chain reaction inside the cell. And this influences really fundamental things like neurogenesis,
Yeah.
the birth of new brain cells,
Yeah.
neuroprotection, so protecting the cells you have, and even calming down inflammation.
So it's telling cells what to do, in a way.
In a way, yes, but it gets even deeper. Lactate also messes with how your genes are expressed through other pathways. Like when lactate gets used for fuel, it produces another molecule, NADH, that can boost the activity of NMDA receptors.
Which are key for learning and memory.
Exactly. So that, in turn, can ramp up the expression of plasticity genes like BDNF, which are vital for brain health, learning, adapting.
Mm.
So the big picture is lactate isn't just fuel. It's actively helping flip the switches for learning and memory in your brain.
And then there's this really cutting-edge stuff, lactate influencing DNA itself. Through lactylation. That sounds complex, but you said it was cool.
It is really cool, and we can simplify it. Lactylation. Okay, imagine your genes are like light bulbs.
Oh.
Whether they're on, off, bright, dim, that controls what your brain cells do. Lactate can directly attach itself to proteins, including these things called histones. Histones are like the spools DNA winds around.
Got it.
So when lactate attaches to a histone, it acts like a dimmer switch that lactate controls. It can directly influence if a gene gets turned up, turned down, or switched off entirely.
A dimmer switch controlled by lactate. That's wild.
It is. But here's the catch. It has this really crucial dual nature. On one hand, lactylation is vital. It's needed for things like making new brain stem cells. But if too much lactate builds up, it can lead to what's called histone hyperlactylation, especially in microglia, the brain's immune cells.
And that's bad.
That could be bad. It can actually push those immune cells to promote harmful inflammation, the kind of stuff we see in diseases like Alzheimer's.
Ah, okay, so it's a balance thing.
Exactly. It raises this big question. How do we get the good effects of lactate without tipping over into the bad ones? It's all about that balance.
Okay, so let's bring this right down to everyday experience. How does this lactate stuff directly impact your memory, your focus? What's the tangible effect?
It's pretty direct, actually. For memory, lactate is, well, essential for consolidation, making memory stick long term.
Yeah.
It's critical for that process called long-term potentiation, LTP.
Right.
Which is basically the cellular basis of learning and memory.
Right.
And remember that astrocyte neuron lactate shuttle, the ANLS, it's working overtime during memory formation. In fact, studies have shown pretty clearly if you block those lactate delivery trucks getting into neurons, you can permanently mess up long-term memory. It's that crucial.
Wow, blocking the lactate delivery harms memory.
Yeah. And think about the link between exercise and memory. We all know exercise is good for the brain, right?
Sure.
Well, exercise increases lactate levels, especially in the hippocampus, that key memory hub. And this lactate boost is linked to an increase in BDNF, that plasticity gene, which correlates with better spatial learning and memory. So again, for those demanding cognitive tasks, learning complex stuff, lactate isn't just helpful, it seems to be pretty much required. It's that high-performance fuel your brain needs when it's really working hard.
Okay, and what about focus? Attention. You mentioned a connection to ADHD, this energy deficit hypothesis. That sounds intriguing.
It is intriguing. The hypothesis basically suggests that maybe, just maybe, lower than ideal lactate production by those astrocytes in the brain could contribute to some ADHD symptoms.
An energy shortage, in a way.
Sort of. A shortage of the right kind of energy, perhaps. And even more fascinating is the idea that hyperactivity, sometimes seen in kids with ADHD, might be, well, a subconscious attempt to compensate.
Compensate how?
By being active, they increase lactate production in their muscles. That lactate then gets into the bloodstream and might be transported more efficiently into the brain, maybe through boosted transporters at the blood-brain barrier, like opening an express lane for lactate.
So the body is trying to get more lactate to the brain.
That's the idea being explored.
Yeah.
It suggests lactate could potentially be a biomarker, something to measure for attention issues, and maybe even a therapeutic target. Could finding ways to boost lactate availability safely be a new approach? It's an active area of research.
So beyond just memory and focus, lactate seems to have this really broad, sometimes complex role in overall brain health and even in disease.
Yeah.
What are some of those bigger picture implications?
Oh, absolutely. It shows real neuroprotective effects, especially in emergencies like stroke or lack of oxygen. It provides that alternative fuel, reduces cell death, helps recovery. Activating those lactate sensors, HETR1, also helps protect cells and reduce inflammation.
Hmm.
But then you look at something like traumatic brain injury, TBI. It gets complicated. Increased lactate uptake after TBI can be good, helpful, but if the brain produces too much lactate, that can actually be toxic to neurons.
That biphasic nature again. Helpful or harmful, depending on the situation.
Exactly. It's all about context and amount. And then there's neural inflammation and microglia, those brain immune cells. This is really complex. In diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, these microglia get activated and switch their metabolism, pumping out more lactate.
Okay.
And that extra lactate, through that lag dilation process we talked about, might actually make the microglia malfunction and worsen inflammation, potentially damaging neurons nearby.
So the immune response goes wrong.
It can. But paradoxically, short bursts of that same metabolic activity in microglia can sometimes be beneficial, helping them clear out, say, amyloid plaques. It's incredibly nuanced.
Wow, that's a tightrope walk.
It really is. And if you look at Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even just normal aging,
Yeah.
you often see problems with how the brain uses glucose and handles lactate. You see reduced glucose uptake, often higher lactate levels in the spinal fluid. High brain lactate is even considered a hallmark of aging. It suggests that problems with lactate regulation might be a kind of common thread in these conditions, which makes therapies targeting lactate pathways potentially very promising for the future.
Wow.
Its role in things like seizures or diabetic brain issues is also complex, sometimes protective, sometimes problematic. We're still figuring out the specifics.
So, okay, we've learned a ton. Lactate is way more than waste. But it sounds like there are still big unanswered questions around where does the research go next?
Oh, definitely. Big questions remain. One major thing is dealing with contradictory findings. Like, why do some studies suggest lactate hurts neurogenesis while many others show it helps?
Yeah, how do you square that?
It really underscores how complex and context-dependent lactate is. The effect probably hinges on the exact concentration, how long cells are exposed, the brain's overall state. Future work has to nail down those parameters precisely.
Makes sense. What else?
Well, fully mapping out how lactate signals, all the intricate pathways and interactions, we don't have the complete picture yet.
Mm-hmm.
Same for lactylation. Specific proteins get lactylated. How exactly does it regulate things in health versus disease?
Right.
And the therapeutic side, lactate supplements show promise, maybe, but how do you dose it right? How do you get it effectively to the brain? What are the long-term side effects elsewhere in the body? Big hurdles there. Translating findings from animal models to humans is always a challenge too, especially with this variability. And finally, with exercise, is it all about lactate for the cognitive boost? Or are other factors involved too? Still teasing that apart.
So we've really journeyed from lactate being dismissed as just, muscle burn waste to seeing it as this central, incredibly dynamic, versatile molecule in the brain. It's quite the turnaround.
It really is. Its impact is profound, both as that vital energy source, especially when neurons are stressed, and as this powerful messenger influencing genes, new cell growth, how connections strengthen.
Yeah.
You can't overstate its importance now. But the key takeaway has to be a nuanced understanding. It's not simply good or bad. It's about balance, context, timing. Precision matters here.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. What everyday things might be tweaking your brain's lactate levels, affecting your focus or memory in ways you never even considered before? And now that you know this, how might you start thinking about your daily choices differently? Maybe optimizing for peak brain function. Definitely something to mull over.